Allow me to set the record straight as quickly and as bluntly as I possibly can. I get very little enjoyment out of playing Final Fantasy 15. Very little to get invested in, and very little to remember it by. Over the past month, I decided to take another crack at the game, given that it's been over 2 years since my last playthrough. And with how much my tastes have changed in those 2 brief years, I had hoped that I'd get a little more mileage out of 15. But needless to say, my opinion on the game largely remains the same as it did back in June 2023 when I first finished it. I didn't like it then, I certainly don't like it now, and shit, at this point, I don't think I'll ever like it. But why is that, you may ask, my esteemed viewers? Most, if not all of you watching this, are well aware of what the game went through during its development, so I'll spare you the jargon. However, with that being said, both of my playthroughs were done through the Royal Edition, once on Xbox and most recently on PC. A finalized, definitive version meant to essentially give fans a finished product. 3 years of patches, additional content, and plenty of small quality of life features to help make the game feel more whole. And the reason I bring this up is because I don't even want to know what the game was like beforehand. Despite Square Enix's best efforts to complete the game, it's still a mostly unenjoyable experience. And I can pick up on several things that probably should have been addressed with the Royal Edition, but somehow weren't. Things like the horrendous camera that's constantly getting obscured by the slightest bits of geometry, on top of having a needlessly difficult time keeping everything in frame no matter how much you adjust it, aerial attacks feeling a bit stiff and finicky, a general lack of transparency in how its systems work with the additional lack of difficulty necessary to give players the intrinsic motivation to explore said systems, warp striking and technical attacks being so unbalanced that it becomes your best option 3/4 of the time, teammates still taking damage from magic attacks where an accessory can now negate this when you could have fixed this issue altogether. Yeah man, Final Fantasy 15 is just not a good time. Its battle mechanics, enemy design is much too rudimentary and uninteresting, on top of having a very noticeable lack of polish and quality of life in various areas. Not to mention how short the game is, to the point where it's so short that you have difficulty getting acclimated to these systems. By the way, this game is like 20 hours long if you're just playing through it casually. The SNES games were longer. That's pretty shitty, man. And with these issues still having a strong enough presence in the supposed definitive version, I have no other choice but to address these sins as legitimate flaws with the game. Either the Royal Edition did very little to circumvent these issues, or the original was such a broken mess that this version salvaged all they possibly could. It's putting a band-aid on a brain tumor is the point I'm trying to make here. This is all, of course, ignoring the exploration and side quests of the game that are somehow even more vapid. So much so that trying to describe them in any meaningful way is a struggle. But I'm going to do so anyway. Try to do so anyway. Side quests are largely uninspired chores that do little to flesh out the world, its history, or its inhabitants. The rare occasions where it does accomplish these are shuffled between the endless cesspool of tasks where you gotta find some fucking tomato or whatever. It's boring, it's uninteresting, and it's not like we don't have a frame of reference, a sort of standard you come to expect from the side quests of this franchise. Hell, Final Fantasy is well known for having some incredible side content that, on certain occasions, can even find themselves on equal footing with the main game. But no, instead of having a small but worthwhile chunk of side content to dig into, Final Fantasy 15 opts for the same menial checklist nonsense that's plagued a number of recent titles. It's literally the definition of quantity over quality. There's hundreds of fucking side quests, dude. You couldn't like condense them down to like make them more interested as a trade-off? No, I guess more is better, it seems. Making matters worse is a regalia. A car that drives so slowly and lacks the sort of immersion I look for in a driving simulator. It feels a bit too restrictive for my taste, and I just feel like I'm biding my time until the game brings me to my destination. Not to mention the inconsistency in when fast traveling is actually available. But this is a pretty funny point to bring up, since fast traveling hardly alleviates the tedium of getting yourself to distant locations. And if you're in the know, then you can likely already guess what I'm going to say next. Yeah, the loading screens suck balls, man. I'm talking like Sonic 06 has some fucking competition, let me tell ya. Let me also tell ya that my specs are rock solid. If I can run this game at 1080p high settings with a consistent triple-digit frame rate while recording, mind you, then it shouldn't have to take the length of a King Crimson song to get through a loading screen, for fuck's sake. That's not an exaggeration either. They've taken up to like 5-6 minutes on average. It's nuts. And these are your two options in getting around, like long loading screens or a boring car simulator. Take your pick. Furthermore, I am not too big on the main story either. It's a tale of two juxtaposing halves, where the first half is a meandering nothing burger, while the latter half, by comparison, is a handheld set-piece marathon. There's an overall shift in tone once a party departs for Altitia, and it's quite drastic. Like, for a game that hardly had a narrative to actually chew into, it really rushes through the rest of the major plot beats. It's such a jarring contrast to the first few chapters, where not much of anything interesting was going down. You added particular segments such as a boring stealth mission, Luna Freya getting fridged, one of the worst boss fights in series history, Chapter 13, and an overall departure from the open world gameplay in favor of complete linearity. You get a story that's about as satisfying as drinking tap water out of a Dixie cup. It's bland and soft, like tap water in a Dixie cup. It's not good, man. It's not good. Strong individual moments be damned. The story's just not that good overall, man. And yet, despite all of that, all the nasty shit I've spent the past few minutes flinging at this game, there lies one aspect of the game that, by itself, warrants at least a single playthrough. Through all the tedium of the exploration, the repetition of the combat, the missed potential of, well, pretty much everything, if it weren't for this one thing, Final Fantasy XV may as well have been completely unsalvageable. Okay, that's a bit hyperbolic, but the fact of the matter is that this game has one hell of a saving grace. And the best thing about this saving grace is the fact that it's nothing super deep or intricate, but rather something that's right in front of you the entire time. So no one told you being king would play this way. Your will's a joke, you choked. Your fiancé's KIA. It's like your destiny is oh so clear. What you're burdened with so much has kept you in fear, but I'll be there for you. When the Empire kills your dad, I'll be there for you. When Arden makes you mad, I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there and I'm glad. If there's a single element of this game many will agree is fantastic, it'd be the dynamic the party has with each other. I think that even if you're the game's biggest hater who think it's the worst thing ever made or whatever, you'd still find it in your soul to give these guys their props. They are the heart and soul of Final Fantasy XV, and honestly, one of the best JRPG parties as far as that feeling of actually being in a party goes. Like, the tangibility of that whole friendship dynamic. It really feels really strong here, through multiple elements of the game, too. And I've made a mention of the game's several mechanical shortcomings, but as far as presentation is concerned, FF15's battle system is exceptional. The animations are fantastic. Just the ways a group are able to bounce off of each other is just so fun to watch. It does a good job in getting their personalities across, on top of highlighting the distinct dynamics they have with Noctis. There's this one animation I love, where Noctis enacts a back attack, and Gladiolus playfully shoves him back, so that he may get the big hit in. Really illustrates that guardian aspect of his character. There's numerous other examples to choose from as well. The love and respect these four have for each other is so tangible through gameplay animations alone. You feel their energy, their charisma, and it's almost like you're a part of it sometimes. Through things like gameplay animations and in-game dialogue, you can get a strong feel for their dynamic, but when it comes to the main story, you may be inclined to believe that this is one of the most organic friendships in the entire franchise. No, that is not me getting ahead of myself and spewing hyperbole for entertainment's sake. It's not even that facetious of a statement. This is basically the sole reason anyone would recommend this game in the first place. Myself included, obviously. The realism and sheer attention to detail and the way they interact with each other, it's, again, organic. The dialogue you hear during and after a battle flows so naturally, and it just feels like something a real-life group of friends would say to each other. Assuming it ever gets to a point where we're casually fighting giant monsters, but I'm sure you get my point. There are examples upon examples of casual friendly banter, like when Prompto recites the iconic victory theme, but there's plenty in the way of dialogue that exhibit other emotions. Some of them can be interpreted as humorous as well, like when you accidentally attack one of your teammates. But then you get to the multiple choice options that not only flesh out our dynamic even further, but can also net you a gameplay advantage of some kind, such as Ignis warning Noctis of dangers that emerge at nights, Prompto requesting which character he should snap more photos of, etc. Not to mention, tour quests, something I wish I got a bit into more, but I neglected to research the way you trigger each of them. Sadly. I did Prompto's, the one where you gotta snap a picture of this dinosaur thing, and goddamn, I gotta say, I missed out on these. If the other two requests were anything like this, then I just screwed myself over. The ones I actually got to were so much fun, and were the most efficient in showing the fun sides of these characters. Racing Gladio, getting Ignis some ingredients. These are where their bonds with Noctis feel the strongest. Noctis getting dragged around to goof off with his friends, just doing what they all love. It's nice. But you wanna know what I personally think is the best thing about this dynamic? The fact that it's not this unambiguously good-natured friendship, where it's this happy-go, hippy-dippy bullshit the whole way through. Too many pieces of media centered around the idea of friendship and brotherhood, especially RPGs, tend to disregard the multifaceted and nuanced emotions that come with this theme. A group of friends isn't this black and white, I love you shit. They support each other through the thick and thin, yeah, but friendships can strain under the weight of severe emotional turmoil too. They can grow cold and distant from one another, and that is something which this game not only remembers, but fucking masters. Chapter 10 is, dare I say, some of the strongest storytelling we've seen out of the recent entries in this series. A chapter prior, the boys got their asses handed to them, and Noctis is understandably distraught. You can just feel the will to continue draining from his body as he must endure yet another failure. Now, this is far from the first time Noctis had moped around like this, and Gladiolus, his sworn protector, had kept his frustrations toward him bottled up throughout this game's duration. We saw bits and pieces of this frustration earlier, but it's here where it hits a boiling point. Gladiolus absolutely snaps at Noctis here. I'm talking like yanking him by the collar, shoving Prompto away, and just straight up spitting in his goddamn face. You could just cut the tension of this scene with a knife. But a quick cut into this exchange between the two would reveal a mixture of emotions within Gladio. He's very obviously annoyed with Noctis, and as his guardian, it's his job to keep him on his feet. And seeing the man he's supposed to protect constantly mope around like this, it'd get anyone in his position riled up. But deep down inside, he truly believes that Noctis can succeed and fulfill his duties. He sees someone with potential. Potential that they're just not capturing. Hence where the frustration comes from. And should you go camping during this chapter, you'll be hit with some powerful, subtle storytelling. Not a single word is said here, just Gladio moving to his seat away from the others, while we also see everyone looking down all sullen-like, and best of all, Ignis is now blind. So if you were looking forward to some nice behemoth skewers, nope. Your ass is eating out a can of beans. Hope you got some fire magic sword to heat that shit up, or else you're just gonna eat it cold. Eat it and weep, fuckface. It's such a chilling scene that gets across so much with just so little. It truly emphasizes the power of the show don't tell rule. Granted, this game had plenty of exposition dumps, but when the story kicks back and allows its visuals and gameplay to do their thing, it's exceptional. And it's moments like this that showcase those rare moments of brilliance even the messiest of stories can produce. But of course, I can't discuss the hard times these guys go through without mentioning the heartfelt beauty of their final moments together. I can't discuss the ways the temporary lack of a beneficial gameplay mechanic highlighting the growing distance between the group without mentioning how a different gameplay mechanic highlights the bond that they share and the time they spent with each other. That was a run-on sentence if I've ever said one. What the hell am I babbling about? Well, in case if it wasn't already obvious, I'm talking about the ending of the game. You see, the game does a super brilliant thing with its photography mechanic, where before Noctis heads to the final showdown with Arden, he's able to pick one photo as a keepsake. You're treated to every single photo you've saved throughout your playthrough as you come to a decision, and it really personalizes your time with the game. Almost felt as if this whole thing was my journey. The photos you flip through aren't just memories of the characters in-game, but they're also your memories as well. And god, if that isn't the most bittersweet thing in this series since the underwater scene in 10. Now, I hate to break up the intense emotions of this segment, but during one of the side quests, this Reddit atheist guy requests Noctis to take pictures of different locations at different angles or whatever. And the reason I say this is because, as it turns out, Prompto, for whatever reason, decided to snap a photo of him. So, if I really wanted to, I could have had Noctis take the photo of this fucking guy that he just had on his person, so that he and Luna Freya can gawk over in the afterlife forever. Or something. I don't know, the ending's kind of vague. I ended up picking a more natural photo that pretty much anyone else would have picked. But damn it, the meme material that would have come with using this random guy's fucking photo would have been off the charts. That man more than likely died while Noctis was napping in Cosmic Fucksville as the apocalypse happened. But hey, at least he would have been immortalized in this manner, I guess. Back to the main topic, we can't talk bittersweet or endings without mentioning the campfire scene. I'd give my analysis here, but I think Noctis said it best. No, like, honestly, what can you even say at this point? The emotions are so real, you can almost touch them. Final Fantasy XV is a severely flawed game, and to be honest, I'm having a hard time recommending it. But damn, the things it gets right, it gets so right. And at the center of everything it does right, lies 4 brothers who make up the very heart and soul of this game. Hey, wait a minute. You can't end the video now, you stupid fucking idiot. You haven't even discussed the DLC yet. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. This game has multiple side stories that you once had to pay for, individually. Thankfully, we've got the Royal Edition on all available platforms now, and one of the good things that it offers is the fact that almost all the DLC is available just with the Royal Edition. The only one that's not available, just like off the hat, is Arden's for some reason. You still have to pay for that separately. I don't know why, but holy shit, I do not envy the poor chumps who had to dig into their wallets just to have a slightly more complete experience of the story back in 2016. And in terms of making the overall narrative more whole, did the DLC do a good job, or at the very least a decent one? Yeah, I think so. All 4 of these stories are pretty simple, but are effective in their simplicity. They provided additional context for what the other party members were up to when they got separated from the group. They give us this necessary context and exposition without overstaying their welcome. Each of them take about an hour and a half, except for Gladys' episode, and in that brief time, they're able to flesh out these characters far better than the main game. But whether or not this is a testament to the strong, tightly composed stories of the DLC, or a testament to the many shortcomings of the main story, is up to you. Nevertheless, the important thing here is that these additional stories highlight the character's connection to Noctis and what each of them mean to him personally. What I found most effective about these stories is the way they each center themselves on a particular trait associated with each character, and how they tie into their relationship with Noctis. We get to see a much needed introspective side of these guys, where they learn to overcome some sort of flaw within their character, not only for Noctis' sake, but more importantly, their own. Gladio training to become the shield Noctis needs to fulfill his duties, Prompto learning to accept his identity so he may become the companion Noctis needs, and Ignis learning to accept Noctis' duties so he may see them through till the end. We were already well aware of the brotherly bonds these 4 guys had with each other, and I think these DLCs did a good job in making us players really feel that bond. I will say the episode Gladiolus is kinda middling for the most part, but episodes Prompto and Ignis were quite solid surprisingly. The archetype of characters who aren't human discovering their inner soul is kinda my thing. And while this isn't anywhere as good as, say, Vivi's character arc, I enjoyed what Prompto's episode had offered. There is this moment toward the end of it that stuck out to me, despite it being a bit of a tone shift. He comes across this broken robot man where he hallucinates, seeing himself in that mindless machine that Noctis was like destroying stuff. I like the added bonus of having this short gameplay segment that really illustrated the flurry of paranoia and insecurity Prompto was feeling at the time. Episode Ignis, meanwhile, is perhaps the strongest of the 3 story-wise, as it focuses on a completely different side of his character, one we don't get to see much of at all in the main story. The thing about Ignis is his wiser, more level-headed demeanor, and how it contrasted the bombast his teammates had. But given the stakes surrounding this specific portion of the story, the DLC gives players a look into the more vulnerable side of Ignis, the side of him that's desperate to protect Noctis at all costs, the side that sees Noctis as less of a teammate, less of a person he has to protect by oath, and more so a brother. It's the most emotional we ever see him, and man is it satisfying to see. What was once merely the brains of the group is now seen as a character who's arguably the most protective of Noctis. Fuck man, he literally sacrifices his own eyesight just to push Arden back a bit. Like, don't fuck around with Noctis when this man's within the vicinity. Oh, and that post-credit scene, I dare say it rivals the main game's post-credit scene. Unlike Gladio and Prompto, Ignis is already well aware of what will become of Noctis. He knows that, no matter what, he ain't coming out of this alive. But despite that, Ignis still pushes onward, assisting Noctis in restoring light to the world. I'd say that, if anything, this DLC highlights not only the weight of making sacrifices, but also the necessity of making sacrifices. And if you're willing to accept that knowledge, you can help change the world for the better, I think. All in all, despite everything wrong with this game, despite the shortcomings, despite the hectic development, just utterly gutting it of its own potential, and despite the fact that these so-called definitive version doesn't really fix much with the game, it just feels more like a band-aid. This alone, this friendship dynamic alone, these 4 characters alone, is enough to justify at least one playthrough of a game. Hell, it's enough to justify a recommendation. Even if you're like not into the way it plays, the way it handles its side quests, or the way it handles its overall story, I'd say that the characterization of these 4 and the way they just play off of each other in multiple ways, this alone makes playing this game worth it. Maybe like not finishing it if you're just not fucking with the gameplay like and stuff like that to that extent, but like at least like give it a chance just for these 4 guys. They deserve it, man. Those are my thoughts. That's the video. Sorry for the shorter video. See you bitches later.